Good evening. My name is Carolina Celedón, and I'm a student project manager at the Clarke Forum for Contemporary Issues at Dickinson College. Thank you all for joining us virtually as we learn how to use new technologies to stay connected while continuing the work of examining contemporary issues. Welcome to tonight's event, How the Public's Perception of Face Coverings and Face Masks Can Impact People of Color in the United States During the Coronavirus Pandemic. When I first heard of the possibility of this event, I was extremely excited. I've always been passionate about social justice and cannot help but apply this lens to the COVID-19 pandemic. From the disproportionate number of deaths in the Navajo Nation compared to their population size, to unequal access to testing, issues of discrimination in the context of the coronavirus do not only apply to masks. On the other hand, masks and face coverings, more generally speaking, are one of the first things that come to mind when I think about this virus. Being able to access and wear masks is a privilege that has been taken for granted by many. If anything, it is framed as an inconvenient and uncomfortable physical burden placed upon us. However, upon listening to people of color, we find out that there are people who want to wear face masks to protect themselves and others against COVID-19, but do not feel safe doing so. For historical and contemporary reasons, populations such as African Americans and Latinos are scared that wearing masks can make them appear threatening to others, especially the police force, who already criminalize them at disproportionate rates. Asian populations in America also worry that wearing face masks would draw attention, lead others to think that they have the virus, and put them in danger of more racist and violent attacks. As a white passing Latina, I feel personal responsibility to learn more about the topic and how I can best be an ally to people of color who face racial profiling and discrimination on a daily basis, especially amidst a global pandemic. As a community, there's a lot that can be learned from community members with radically different experiences and concerns than ourselves. I am eager to hear from our guest speaker and look forward to thinking about how seemingly simple precautions against COVID-19 have grave implications for certain groups of people. Our guest tonight is Safronia Perry, Executive Director of Hope Station, an organization in Carlisle, Pennsylvania that develops programs that seek to empower people in the Hope Station area. She has been at Hope Station a little over 4 years. In addition to her work there, she has served on numerous committees such as the Greater Carlisle Project Steering Committee, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission Advisory Council, and most notably is the co-chair of the Education Committee for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. Thank you, Safronia, for your involvement. This event is to serve as an informal discussion, so please type your questions and comments in the live chat next to this YouTube video. Linh Nguyen, Clarke Forum student co-supervisor, will be moderating the live chat this evening. Thank you so much for attending. We will now begin the discussion.
Hi, Safronia. I was wondering if you could start by talking about your work and the work at the Hope Station.
Yes, I am the executive director there at the Hope Station. Currently, we run different types of programs and cultural events. We are a community organization, and we service a low-income neighborhood, which is actually the neighborhood that we serve is right there where Hope Station is located. We offer right now youth programs. We also are beginning to offer adult programs, and we are also able to connect people with the different resources that are available. We partner with a lot of other organizations in Carlisle, so we're able to help put people together with the resources that they're in need of. So when I say that we're a community organization, that's really how I feel about it. There's no one thing that we do. We try and help in any way that we can.
Thank you, Safronia, for sharing the information about Hope Station. So before we proceed with the discussion, I just wanted to remind our viewers that you can put your questions and comments in the chat section on YouTube at any time. And depending on time, we will direct as many questions and comments to the discussion as possible. So the event tonight came about because the students at Clarke Forum noticed that while practicing wearing masks serves to slow the spread of the current pandemic, there are many stories and articles that we've read about how people of color have received different and sometimes violent or dehumanizing reactions when they wear masks in public. So before we talk about the practice of wearing masks, I was wondering, Safronia, if you could talk about how COVID-19 is affecting people of color at disproportionate rates in many cities and maybe in Pennsylvania?
Well, I also looked at some different articles that are out there. I'm not sure what the numbers and totals are like here in Cumberland County or even really in Pennsylvania. But I will say that as I was reading, New York, Detroit, New Orleans, Chicago, and Milwaukee are just a few of the cities where the Black residents have been hit the hardest. Nearly 3,300 of the nation's 13,000 deaths so far, about 42% were Black. Roughly 21% of the total population in the areas covered by the analysis, according to the Associated Press. So that just shows you that they're disproportionate numbers. And, in understanding why that is, it's because, for many of us, we have problems with not having insurance or having health issues that we're unaware of, because we don't have the insurance to go and get, a regular physical and things like that, because we suffer from diabetes and asthma, but also because a lot of us work as essential workers because we don't have a choice. We're working low income jobs and we're having to work in conditions that are forcing us to be in a position where we can get it and then pass it on to someone else. And so, yes, it is hitting the Black community very hard right now.
Oh, I apologize. I was on mute. I was going to say that I really like your point about the pre-existing conditions, because I think it's really easy to assume that people are aware of these. But like you said, everyone even has the luxury to go to the doctor or feel comfortable. A lot of people avoid it because of racial profiling, discrimination. Yes. Your weight can also deter you from wanting to go to a healthcare professional. And so there are a lot of factors at play.
There are a lot of factors, and it's not a demeaning thing. We are in the position that we are in, and if we don't have, so say, we're working a job where we don't have, not only are we, do we have not have health care, but we also don't have the benefits to take leave whenever we need to, because we need to get paid. And so all of those things weigh in, and all of those things contribute to our health. They contribute to why we don't see a doctor whenever we need to. And that contributes to why we are less healthy than other ethnicities.
So Lynn and I have come across articles and stories of different Asian populations in the US who are perceived as having the virus and being attacked verbally and physically for wearing masks. Could you comment on how the original labeling by the US officials and mass media of the virus as the Wuhan virus, or the quote Chinese virus, affected how the US population viewed fellow Asian citizens?
Plain and simple, it's racist. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's racist. And it hasn't really changed anything. Racism in America is more American than apple pie, than baseball. It really is. It's always been there. I hope that one day that won't be the case. I don't see that while I'm still alive. But it doesn't take much. So, for us all to be surprised about how it was labeled, whether it was somebody from China, an Asian who actually contracted it first or not, We don't really know that, or at least I don't really know that. I don't know who was the first person to have it. It could have been that somebody brought it to China. They don't know that. And so to label it that, plain and simple, is racist.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also come across a lot of news and media outlets using images of people wearing face masks in a lot of Asian countries, even though that is a common practice regardless of the pandemic,
Yes.
even before the pandemic even happened, for like many different cultural reasons. I thought that was definitely adding to the situation.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I guess with that said, how do you think that hate crimes and also racial profiling should be addressed? And how do you think they should be handled differently now that the situation is even more turbulent?
I think a hate crime should be addressed just the way any crime is addressed. It's a crime. So, somebody should be charged. And, if you're found guilty, then, you pay the price of that, whether it's jail time, a fine, or whatever. But it has to be dealt with. And it should not be just because of this pandemic. This is something that should have been addressed a long time ago. And what my hope is that we don't go back to the norm, or what we considered the normal. It's going to be a new normal whenever we come back from this. So I hope that people begin to look at things a little bit differently and have a better understanding. Honestly, education is key, and understanding that, treating people differently simply because of the fact that they look differently than you is wrong, and it is racist. So, the way I see you handle a hate crime is like you handle a robbery. Then you handle, anything. It's a crime. And they should be punished for a crime that they commit.
It's interesting though with hate crimes. I feel like a lot of times people hide behind the mask of like, that was a bad expression to use in this discussion, but they use the excuse of free speech and they say, I'm allowed to say this. And I just don't think that applies when it's against a certain kind of person. You're harming someone's life and humanity.
But I say all the time, you are completely correct. It is free speech, but there are consequences to any action. There are always consequences. So say what it is that you would like to say. Do whatever you feel you want to do, but understand there's consequences behind that. And you have to be dealt with adequately.
So many people believe that the CDC's homemade mask guidance was an instance of racial insensitivity due to the racial profiling of criminals based on race, as well as by using certain fashion trends, such as certain colored bandanas being associated by police forces with gang violence. What do you think is the best way to include racial nuance in incorporating protective measures against the virus?
I'm going to say what I said in my last answers: education. People need to be made aware. There needs to be more conversation. People need to be educated and understanding. If we've all been told that we need to wear masks in order to protect one another, then it shouldn't matter what color you are. It shouldn't matter where you're going. If you're to walk into a store, we walked into a store last week and my son did. And not only did you have to wear a mask, but they had a sign on the door that they wanted you to wear gloves as well. So that means that everybody has to adhere to that. And quite honestly, if you fear a person of color in a mask, then you should not be working in a store. You should not be going in the store, because it's necessary for all of us to stay safe during this time to wear. And so that means that we have to wear them as well.
It's really interesting that you brought up the point that sometimes restaurants and stores themselves have signs up that require people who come in to wear masks and other protective gears. Because I wonder if Do you think the indecisiveness or the uncertainty at first by the government and the CDC, because they weren't sure if they want people who weren't sick to be wearing masks, I wonder if that uncertainty add to the perception of wearing masks and add to the public's perception of people of color wearing masks at all, at least at the beginning of the pandemic?
Right. I think it's a possibility because at the beginning, we weren't told that everybody had to wear them. So some people wore them, some people did not. I'll be honest, I did not. I didn't wear them until they said, okay, we want you to wear them. And that's when I started wearing the mask. I had a feeling it was going to come to that. As the days went on, I started feeling like it's going to come to that. We're going to have to wear them. And so we started trying to get prepared for the fact that, yeah, we're probably going to have to do this and do this for a while. But yeah, I believe that there are those that, whenever at that time where you didn't have to wear them, it wasn't required, that, if they saw a person of color come into a store or walking down the street with a mask on, that they automatically made the assumption that they should fear them. I have two sons, and my youngest one, whenever he was in school and it was winter, he bought this. I guess it was like a hat, kind of hat ski mask thing that he wore, and it covered up everything but his eyes. And when I say I was nervous about him wearing that and walking down the street, and at that time, by that time, he had grown to be quite tall and quite big. So I was afraid for him to even walk to school with it covering his face. But when we talked every morning, whenever he left for school, and I said to him, if you happen to stop at the store before you come home, before you go to school, you make sure you take that off. Don't pull it up. I want you to take it off completely before you walk in that store, because there is always that chance that they will look at him and won't see what I see, that they'll look at him and they'll see, oh, he's a big black guy and he's going to rob us or he's going to kill us. I don't see that when I look at him, of course, because he's my son. So it's something that we fear, and it's not new. And I honestly don't know that it's going to change anytime soon. It is a fear that Black people have.
I really think that some kind of like racial or cultural sensitivity training could be beneficial, especially what you were saying with all these stores. It's crazy to me in 2020, we still, like, some job trainings don't include things like this because you're going to have a diverse audience coming in to shop with you.
Yes. And that's not going to change either. The United States is becoming more diverse every day. And it doesn't matter what they're saying, how they want it to change, and they don't want us to be here. We're here, and more people are coming, and more children are born, as children of color. And so things do need to change. And whether it's racial profiling, some type of training that's done. There are plenty of forums that are done. I've gone to a few of them. I've been a part of a few of them. There's plenty of education out there. You don't even have to go to a training. You don't have to sit in the office and be trained. You can just Google information. There's plenty of books. There's plenty of ways that, if you want to be aware, if you want to be educated, you don't need people to push you to do that. It should be something that you just automatically do, or just in your mind, just say, this is another person, and I shouldn't fear them simply because they don't look like me.
Yeah. Something I learned from Ibram X. Kendi, if you know him, like how to be an anti-racist, who was going to come for the Clarke Forum, but now.
Yeah, I was going to come to that. I got his book, but I was going to come to that.
Yes. Well, it's being postponed to the fall, so
Yes.
trust it'll still happen. But something I really enjoyed from his book is he said, I mean, of course it's problematic when you have a racist thought, like you see a certain person walking down the street and you think something of them, but what really matters is the second thing you say to yourself. So not your initial instinct, because that's what society has taught you about that person.
Yes.
And I mean, you should work to unlearn it, but in a way you just internalize it and it's not completely your fault. It's then following it up with, that person is not a criminal. They have done nothing to threaten me.
Right.
So I should just erase that thought.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that. Okay, so our next question is, Who bears the blame of certain people of color feeling unsafe wearing face masks?
White people. I don't mean to be blunt, but in all honesty, that is the case. And it's not something that's new. It's not that all of a sudden there's, white people that are now saying this. No, this is something that's deep rooted since we were brought over here. It's been embedded in everyone's brain that Black people are bad, Black people are lazy, Black people don't want to take care of themselves, they're savages. We have been looked at as a race, as a people who can't think, are not educated, and none of it is true. But that comes from, it comes from whites. Plain and simple, it does. And unfortunately, there are still a lot that feel that way about us. Just when you hear the white supremacists and the fact that so many white supremacist groups have formed in these past few years, just ready, honestly, just ready to attack at any time, and, screaming about wanting white America, that's where it comes from, and it's something that we live with and we deal with and we think about on a daily basis, not just the mask, but every day before we walk out into the world, we walk out of there in defense mode in every place that we go, every avenue that we go, unless we are surrounded by each other. And even when we're surrounded by each other, we never know. So, we keep up a defense because we know and understand it, and we all know where it comes from.
So the next question, we have a few questions and comments in the chat section coming in, and one of the audience is wondering if you think there will be a change in the future when it comes to facial coverings. Will it become normalized, or could this pandemic somehow be a positive thing for racial justice, as facial coverings could ultimately become destigmatized?
I think that we're going to have to wear masks for a while. I think even whenever they begin to open up the states, that we are going to have to continue this for a while. Maybe not for another whole year, but for some months, we're going to have to. As far as how I think it will change, I don't know. I wish that I could be more optimistic to say, yes, I think that this is going to change things and people are going to see it differently. But history has shown us that there aren't very many changes that happen for us. And when it does, it's fleeting. So I don't know. I don't know. I would like to see it change. I would.
Let's see. So ex-presidential candidate Andrew Yang had a pretty controversial thing happen where he said that Asian Americans need to, quote, embrace and show our Americanness in ways we never have before, and suggested doing things like helping your neighbor, donating gear, volunteering, and wearing red, white, and blue, to show that Asian Americans are truly Americans who will, quote, do our part for our country in this time of need. Of course, he then faced backlash for this from a lot of Asian Americans, saying that they don't need to do anything to prove their Americanness. And in this time of crisis, we've noticed that certain Americans feel like they really need to do more than usual to prove their citizenship, or, like I said, Americanness. How should we address this?
I don't agree with him. I don't think that they should have to change who they are. Now, do I think it's a good idea for them to help? I do, but I think it's a good idea for everyone to help, no matter what color you are, and no matter what ethnic group you come from. I think that, yes, because all of us are suffering right now. So I think it's a good thing for all of us to get involved as much as we possibly can. But in my opinion, it's not about proving that you're an American. If you live here, if you were born here, you're an American. One of the things, and I've questioned this a few times, and then I saw a few people question the same thing or make comments about it on Facebook as well. Why is it that they're called Asian Americans and we're called African Americans? I don't understand it. we're born here. I'm already an American. So I'm either African or I'm Black, and I'm Black. So, to feel like people have to prove their Americanness. And as far as wearing red, white, and blue or carrying the flag, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think you have to do anything to prove that you are an American. If you were born here, your birth certificate will say that you're already an American. You do what you need to do, and it's a personal. It really is. It's a personal decision of whether or not you're going to help. Now, for me, because I'm very passionate about being involved in the community and helping my community, I'm going to get out there and do, regardless, because it's just who I am and it's just what I do. Not everyone feels that way, and not everyone gives back in the same way. There may be some that say, well, I don't want to be out there like that. But if I'm driving down the street, or if I pull somewhere and I see a homeless person out there and they have a cup and they're asking for some money, I'll give them some change. That may be what they do. It may be just giving somebody some advice, or giving some clothes away. That may be the most that they do, and that's completely fine. But having to prove that you're an American, and I'll make sure I'm careful about my language. It's bull. It's nonsense. It really is. You shouldn't have to go. And I'm going to say, if white Americans don't have to do anything to prove that they're Americans, then Black people shouldn't have to, Asians shouldn't have to, Latinas shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to do anything to prove who we are and that we're here.
Yes, I completely agree, and thank you for that commentary. And I also have read a lot about just like how you shared your personal story, that you always tell your son to take off certain pieces of clothing just to protect himself. I've also read stories about Black and Hispanic people going out of their way to act more friendly when they're wearing a mask in order to make themselves, in order to avoid being a threat. And I just thought that there's so much more people of color have to do, and just to look out for themselves when other people aren't educated about
right. And we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to assimilate in order for us to be here. And we've done that. We've done that for a long time. And it's honestly, it's not until you feel confident and comfortable in who you are and where you come from that you make that decision that I'm not going to do that. I make decisions, all the time, that I'm going to look a certain way because I want them to see me. I make sure my earrings that I have on tonight say Black Power. And I do things like that on purpose because you know what? That's how I feel. It is about Black Power. It's not, and that doesn't mean that I say take down white people and take down Asian. It's not that. It's just that I feel that I love who I am. I embrace my race. And I love shouting from the rooftops that this is who I am. I love being a Black woman. And I think that everyone should embrace that, no matter who you are. So, while I actually like Andrew Yang, I didn't hear that he had said that, but I totally disagree with that. I totally disagree with that.
It's just really saddening to me that it almost feels like people of color are starting like at -5, like somehow they have a deficit, with Asian Americans. It's like guilty until proven innocent. Like you must have Corona and you're bringing it here. And for African Americans and Latinx people, like you must be a criminal until you prove otherwise. And it seems like white populations get to start at 0, and then anything they do that's good, it's almost like they're glorified in a certain way. Like that really struck me about the Yang thing is, so I guess an Asian person has to do something to even prove themselves, but if a white person does that same deed, then they're a hero. So it's a total double standard there.
Take, for instance, the rallies that have taken place. And then I just saw how the state capitol, and I think it was Michigan, just got stormed by a group of people. They don't worry that something's going to happen to them. They weren't arrested. There wasn't tear gas thrown after them. And they didn't have the police standing there telling them that they had to leave. They were not treated like that. if we do that, then that's what we get. We get the threatening, you better leave or this is going to happen. So you can tell and you can see the difference in how people are treated. And I'm just sorry, I just cannot, I can't agree with us having to do extra to prove ourselves. You know, it's unfortunate that we have to fear so many things on a regular basis just to say, you know what, I'm okay, I'm an okay person, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm not going to do this. And just like you, I love my children, I want them to be educated, I want to be educated, I want to have a better life, I want to have a job where I make enough money to provide for me and my family. But we have to jump through so many hoops just to prove that.
Yeah, and to echo that point, to reflect back on the protests by Indigenous people, for example, when they were protesting the pipelines, even though they were all unarmed, they were all met with tear gas and
Yes.
arrest, even though the recent protests against the stay-at-home orders, people were carrying guns and Confederate flags, and they, not that I've heard of, they weren't met with any sort of arrest at all.
The mask that they had on their face was not protective gear. There is a picture of a young man standing there with an assault rifle in his hand and a full mask on his face. It was like they went there to fight. They didn't go there to protest, to rally. It wasn't about peace for them, because if you're feeling like you're going to a peaceful rally, why do you need assault weapons? Why do you need that? You're going there to say, I'm against this and this is what I want, but there they were standing there. If that had been any other race standing there with assault rifles and full face masks on, there's no way they would have been able to walk out of there.
Yeah, that reminded me too with the Standing Rock thing, Lynn. I saw this really powerful video made by an Indigenous activist. I think she looked a little bit younger, like I would say, like early 20s, but she was saying like she kind of tried to make a parallel with what happened there for white Americans. Of course, this is making some assumptions, but it was saying like, can you imagine if someone came into mass and started like throwing all these things and villainizing you? And she's like, that's exactly what happened to us, because they were literally mid-ceremony in Standing Rock when everything was happening. And I just thought, wow, like once she said that, it really struck me. It would not be perceived the same way.
Yeah, so I was wondering if we can bring this conversation to Carlisle a little bit. Have you or Hope Station seen a disproportionate COVID-19 levels of cases in Carlisle, or have you seen any of these issues affecting people of color in Carlisle?
I'll be honest, I have not. I have not seen that. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. It just means that I have not. I will say that that I think that if it is happening, it's not happening in the numbers and the cases that it is in other places. Now that's my opinion, and mainly because I haven't seen it and I haven't heard anything. It's not a conversation that's been had. So, and that doesn't mean, again, that it's not happening. It just means that, I've not been made aware of it. So it is a possibility, but I don't know.
I do know at Dickinson, I know Carlisle is in Dickinson, but it's part of the community. I had certain friends before this really spun out of control when I was first rising before spring break say that they got little comments. They were East Asians, and I guess people perceived them, just assumed they were Chinese because they couldn't tell the difference, and made little comments about the virus that were
That I did hear about.
uncalled for. Yeah.
Yes, that I did hear about when that first happened, and yes, it was truly uncalled for. And unfortunately, things like that were happening even before the pandemic hit. I'd heard that, some of the students would be walking down the street or walking to class or something, and, people would ride past and say some awful things. And, and that's got to be scary for their parents. They've sent their children off to go to college to get an education, and while they're away, and they can't do anything for them, they can't comfort them in a way because they're not there with them. That now their children are being verbally assaulted for no reason. So I did hear about that. I did.
Do you think that the general public is well informed about the reality, whether to wear a mask being a decision that people have to make and how this is more complicated for people of color?
No. And I say that because, if you don't fear it, you don't think about it. And it doesn't mean that there's no one that thinks about it, because I believe that there are, pockets of people that get it and understand, and they want to be an ally. They want to be there to help. So they get that part of it. But as far as the majority, I think most don't think about it. And again, mainly because it's not something that they have to think about on a regular basis, and it's very easy to, say, oh, I didn't even realize that, or I didn't think about this, because especially whenever you're going through things yourself, so as this is hitting everybody and everybody is in their own space of how they're feeling about it, they're not, a lot of them aren't taking the time to really think about how it can really affect people of color. People of color, of course, think about it because, well, we've always thought about it. So it's not a new thing for us as far as, thinking about it and the possibilities of what can happen. I think we talk about it a little bit more because we know and understand. But I think that, again, if it's not something that you have to fear, it's very easy for you to not have it on your mind and think about it. But I'm fortunate enough that I work in groups with a good group of people who do take the time to think about the Black communities, the Asian community, and they do things to help the community itself. We gave away masks a few weeks ago, or last week I think it was, and that was people that just said, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, we need to make sure that the Hope Station area, the residents there have masks and hand sanitizer. So it's not saying that not everybody, it's not a thing for everybody, but I think that the majority of people just don't.
So to talk more about that, I was wondering if you could comment on the issue of racial profiling, or is there disproportionate police brutality in Carlisle or Pennsylvania area?
I think in Pennsylvania, yes. I've heard stories. I've heard about some of the things that have happened in Philadelphia. In Carlisle, I don't think it's the case here. Not now. In the past, yes. In the past, yes. But I think that, and again, so I don't want for anybody in my community to say, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, because that's very easy for people to feel like, oh, you don't know what's going on, you're out of it. There is the possibility, but from where I sit, it feels different than it used to be. So I don't think that it happens a lot. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, or at least as far as the police. I don't feel like it's happening as much, and it's happening on a regular basis. Do I think racial profiling is still happening in Carlisle? Most definitely. As far as police brutality, I'm gonna say I don't think so, in my opinion. And again, it could be that there's certain things that I'm not a part of or I'm not aware of. So, I don't want anyone to think that I'm speaking out of turn. I'm speaking from where I'm sitting, and in having a relationship with the chief of police here. He and I, talk on a regular basis, and he's really tried to get involved and, checking in, making sure everything is good, coming over to Hope Station. It just feels like they're trying to be more sensitive and trying to understand better and trying to keep the peace here in Carlisle. This is a small town. Still, it's grown, but it's still a small town. And if something were to happen here, like what happens in some of the bigger cities, it would be a big problem that I think could get out of control. So as far as police brutality here, I don't believe that it's happening here with the police here now.
How can people in the racial majority be allies to people of color during this pandemic?
I just had this conversation with somebody last week. I think it's very simple. Stand up. When you see something or you hear something that you know is wrong, simply open your mouth and stand up. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. I don't think that people have to do big things to prove that they're an ally, because I think sometimes that begins to cross the line, because it's almost where if you do too much, it looks like you think that you're saving us and you're a savior, and we don't need saving. We do need people to stand with us and to call things out whenever they see them happening. I think there's easy ways, you can get involved in different organizations or just give back. I don't think that people really have to do a whole lot to show that they are an ally. But when you know something is wrong, simply say, I know this is wrong. Whether it's a family member, a friend, an acquaintance, whoever it is, don't stand by and watch people mistreat other people for no reason. And don't stand by when you hear them say something that is completely out of pocket. You need to say that. Like, you're wrong, you shouldn't have said that, or why would you say that? What makes you feel like that? Calling people on the carpet, I think, is the most important thing. Sometimes if you do just that much and they see that, they know and understand where you stand. I say all the time that it's not enough to just be quiet whenever you hear things. And then, to certain people say, well, I thought that was wrong. That's not enough. It's not enough. You're just sitting there. That means that you've chosen a side, as far as I'm concerned, and you've chosen the side that says it's okay for this to happen. If you see something, do something about it. It's as simple as that to me.
I think also what you say when people aren't in the room says a lot about how strong your allyship is. Like, if there are no people of color and it's just white people and there's an offhanded comment, like, what happens then and there, I think speaks volumes, because you're not performing anything for anyone. You're not expecting a result.
And the only people that know that happened were you and the people that were in that room. And it doesn't even have to leave that room, but there and then you took a stand. And honestly, I believe that everyone needs to take a stand for something. You need to take a stand for something. Just using your voice.
Yeah, I agree. And I think even when the people of color in the room, not assuming that they always want to do the labor, because not only can it be exhausting, but I think it can be really scary in certain spaces. Like, I know in certain classrooms when I'm the only one, I don't want to be that person that's constantly saying what needs to be said, because I'm afraid I'm going to sound confrontational or come off a certain way, and just having other people there to echo support or be the first people to say something that, I don't know, I really appreciate that too.
Yeah.
So my next question, perhaps you've already addressed this, but for people of color moving forward, I was wondering what you think people can do in order to protect themselves during the pandemic specifically.
I don't know. You know what? That's a question that I honestly don't know that I have the answer to. because, it could very well be that, you don't have to do, you could just simply be sitting there minding your own business, or walking into a store minding your own business, and you are approached or you are assaulted. I don't know if there is a good way to necessarily protect yourself. I'm going to say that, while I try not to be a confrontational person, and I try not to be one that is ready to jump in and ready to fight, at a moment's notice. But I'm also not going to allow anyone to mistreat me. I'm not going to allow anyone to mistreat my kids. So I don't know. Like I said, a lot of us, most of us, I think all of us, are in defense mode all the time. So we're always ready for, just in case this happens. So if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And sometimes it's a matter of we talked it out in our head and figured it out before we went into the space. Like, okay, so, if such and such happens, I'm going to handle it like this. Or, we've watched something. I've watched videos of certain situations. I saw a video of a cop, and I can't even remember where it happened, but the way he beat up on this 14-year-old boy on the ground, I was infuriated. And all I could think was, oh no, that couldn't have been my kid. Because trust and believe, we have a problem. And that's how I thought of it. And I think that we spend a lot of time just kind of thinking about what we would do in a certain instance, and in a certain situation. So to say how we can be prepared to protect ourselves, I really don't know. I think that we're doing that always. I guess is the best answer, is that we're already doing it. We do it. We've always done it. We'll always do it. I think that's the best answer I can give.
Yeah, thank you for just telling us what you think. I was only asking because I came across a lot of interviews where Black and Hispanic Americans would say that the choosing whether to wear a mask or not for them is sort of a lose-lose situation, because they could be endangering their lives either way. And I just was wondering if there is anything else that could be possible for them. And I also came across a lot of statistics on Asian Americans or Asian people in America in general, there was a surge of first-time gun buyers in a lot of states on the West Coast, who were people of Asian descent. And I just thought that it's very disturbing that choosing violence is the only way that they think that they can protect themselves.
Unfortunately, a lot of times that is, and I hate to say that, because like I said, I don't, I'm not a violent person unless I absolutely have to be. And there are times wherever you absolutely have to be. Fortunately, I've not been put in that position. But I think that, we have to be prepared for that, that if we have to fight back, we have to fight back. I don't think that it's in our best interest to always feel like we have to back down from everything, or have to be the ones to beg and plead and please don't do this, and forgive everything. We've done that, and it's not really gotten us very far. I think that if we have to protect ourselves, then we need to do whatever it is that we need to do to protect ourselves. And that means also that right now it is required by the governor that everyone wear masks. So you know what? We wear masks. And if we have to deal with someone confronting us, then we deal with that. However that has to be. And I don't be thinking I'm promoting going out there and, fighting people. I'm not promoting it. I am saying that, if it's necessary, it's necessary. We just can't have people walking all over us and beating up on us and us not fighting back. It's a new day. We are going to fight back whenever we need to.
Thank you. So the next question comes from one of our audience members, and the question is, what would you recommend for specific activities, organizations, and initiatives in Carlisle that could foster more sustained cooperation across racial and ethnic groups?
You know what? I will say something very simple. Like I said, we talking with your president, Margie Ensign. You know, we've been a part of these community meetings once a week. You know, every week we've been getting on the call since the pandemic hit, and we've been talking about different things. And you know, I I made the comment on one of the calls that you know I had gotten a text message from someone asking me how it was affecting the Black community here in Carlisle, and you know who could they donate things to, and you know, and I simply you know didn't have an answer for it, except you know I'm not sure how it's hitting, and you know here's some organizations or whatever if you want to donate that you can. So I brought this up in the meeting, and as soon as I did, you know the group got together and said, so what can we do to help? Maybe we can get some masks in that neighborhood to make sure that people have them in case they weren't able to get them, because there was such a they were so in demand that it was hard to get them. And so, you know, hand sanitizer was gone, wipes were gone, you know, disinfectant, all of that, masks, it was hard to find all of that. And so they got together and said, we want to donate these. And then just yesterday, I got an email from someone, one of the foundations that we get our funding from. And she said, you know, I have a volunteer who made 400 masks that she would like to donate, and she wants them to go to the Memorial Park neighborhood. Things like that, you know, just letting people know that you're thinking of them, you know, during this hard time, reaching out to organizations that are working with people of color to say, you know, is there anything that you need? Is there a way that I can help? Donating your time. You know, it doesn't have to be that you're throwing out big money. Money helps, you know, if it's an organization, but, you know, donating your time, you know, just to say, we have some wonderful people that, you know, we're coming over and volunteering for our after school program, you know, and it was really great. They were comfortable. They left their homes every week, you know, and it's been for the past few years now. But they've been coming over to Hope Station, and they've been, you know, working with the kids and enjoying them. It's simple things that can be done. You know, it really is. I say all the time that I don't think that people should feel like they have to do big, extravagant things to make a difference. You know, making a difference can be just simply giving of your time, simply learning on your own, you know, and not always feeling like you have to ask a person of color, well, you know, do you think I should do this, or how should we do this? You know, you can take the time to look some things up. There's plenty of books that are out there. There are plenty of forums that are done, you know, that people can just go to, or just saying, you know what, I want to take a class, I want to learn a little bit more. So do that. But, you know, I think that volunteering and giving back is for me, it's a very important thing. And so for me, for them to have reached out like that and given their time to make sure that people in the neighborhood that I grew up in the neighborhood that I work in, is safe, meant a lot to me, that they took that time to do that you took the time to say, I'm thinking about the people over there, and I want to make sure that they have everything that they need and that they're okay. That is a big deal. And you know, and it really doesn't, like I said, it really doesn't have to be much. It doesn't have to be big to just get involved.
And another thing, if I may add to, and please let me know if what you think of this, but one of my friends recently told me that the Trump administration revoked one of the indigenous tribal reservation during this global pandemic. And I was just wondering what you think of the administration's insensitivity to these issues. And I wonder if like that may have surged during this time. And I guess because we're so consumed with all the news about coronavirus that we as audiences or people reading the news may not be paying attention to other issues that may be happening. So I think paying attention to that would also help.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to be careful with my words because I like to make sure that I know where I stand on a whole lot of things, but I try to be careful because of the organization that I represent and the different people that that either work with us or will sometimes donate to us. So I try to be careful with what I say. I think though that a lot of things need to change. A lot of things need to change. And there are too many people that are insensitive to other ethnic groups for no reason. And I get that if you want to be popular, you want people to like you, you do things that that people want you to do, that you think people want you to do, and you do things that you think will help put you on top. So you go out of your way to do these things, and they are insensitive, and I'll leave it at that, because if I say too much more, I can't, let's put it like this. I'm not going to say what I would like to say, so I'll leave it at that.
Since we've kind of been talking about Carlisle, I mean, the conversation has been shifting. What are some organizations that you recommend, either in Carlisle or around the country, with resources for people of color in terms of battling racial profiling and in terms of the pandemic?
Battling it? Well, I'll say, okay, so one organization, it's not in Carlisle, even though the advisory council is here, but the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission is one, and I have recommended to people if they felt like they've been racially profiled. I've not been able to say, okay, so they can definitely help you. You definitely have a case. I've not been able to tell them that, but I have said to them, I think you should contact the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, to let them know what's happening. If there is a case, they can help you. So I'll say, definitely the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. I'll say that there are some other organizations that are really trying, getting out there and doing the work. So Moving Circles is one, and now they formed Not in Our Town. And I'll say, let's see, and then Project Share, where they might not necessarily be doing that type of work. Project Share is there to help anyone who's in need of food. Community Cares is another. If you're looking for shelter, if you're looking for some help there, Project Share, Community Cares, Salvation Army, Safe Harbor, Domestic Violence Shelter. There are a lot of organizations here in Carlisle that, we're partnered with. YWCA, there are a lot of organizations that we partner with that may not do, all of the work as far as, racial biases and things like that, but they do work to help everyone who needs the help. And so, if we're gonna, if I'm talking about that, I'll say all of them, but definitely the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, Moving Circles, which is run by Marsha Berry and Kim Berry, and Not in Our Town as well. And then, we do have the advisory council that's here. We got to get some things together. I've kind of, I've been busy, so it's been a little bit hard for me to be as active as I need to be with that advisory council. But, I think, reaching out to those organizations, they will find a way to help you, whether it's advice of who to talk to and what kind of help you can receive. And then, we do have, I'm also the commissioner for the Human Relations Commission here in Carlisle. And while, ours isn't where we focus solely on the race part of it, we do help to recommend and tell people where they should go if they're in need of some help. So, yeah, I'll say that.
Thank you, Safronia. That was all of the questions that we've gotten. So that concludes tonight's event. Thank you to our audience members for participating and for asking great questions. And Safronia, thank you again for being here today. I've definitely learned a lot.
And thank you guys also, for reaching out to me, asking me to be a part of this. Again, most of what I said is truly just an opinion. So it's always nice that people will at least listen to your opinion, whether you're right or wrong. But thank you. I'm very honored that you asked me to be a part of this. I think that it's an important conversation. And thanks to those who have taken the time to watch and to ask questions. It's greatly appreciated.